Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be testing 4 top vegan brownie recipes here on YouTube. I'll be trying recipes by Rainbow Plant Life, Tasty, Rosanna Pansino, and The Crows. First, I'm starting with Rainbow Plant Life's recipe. It includes aquafaba, which is the liquid from a can of chickpeas, Dutch processed cocoa powder, vegan butter, and espresso powder. Start by preheating the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and lining an 8 by 8 inch pan with parchment paper. Since I don't have 4 brownie pans, I'll be using these foil pans, which include lids for storing. In a medium bowl, sift the flour and cocoa powder. None of these recipes actually specified which type of all-purpose flour to use, so I went with bleached flour. If you used unbleached flour, bear in mind that the batter and the brownies may be thicker. In a large bowl, add the aquafaba and sugar. Beat with a mixer until thick and glossy. Then add the vanilla, espresso, and salt. A quick note, I reduced the salt by 1/8 of a teaspoon since I didn't have the recommended salt-free aquafaba. Set the bowl aside after mixing. Next, create a double boiler to melt the chocolate. Fill a small saucepan with water and bring to a boil. Place a heat-safe bowl on the pot. The bottom of the bowl shouldn't be touching the water. Add the chopped chocolate and vegan butter. Stir until melted and smooth. Then fold it into the aquafaba sugar mixture. Add the flour cocoa mixture and fold together until just combined. Then gently fold in the chocolate chips. Pour the batter into the pan and smooth the top. Bake for 34 to 37 minutes or until a toothpick inserted comes out with a few crumbs. Mine took about 40 minutes to bake. Next up, Tasty's recipe. I divided the chocolate since half will be melted. The recipe also includes ground flax seeds as the egg replacer and vegan butter. Combine the flaxseed with water and set it aside to thicken for 10 minutes. Melt half the chocolate in a small bowl. I used the same double boiler method like the previous recipe, but this may also be done in the microwave in a microwave-safe bowl. Be sure to heat it at 10-second intervals, stirring between each to prevent the chocolate from burning. Next, melt the vegan butter. I use the microwave. In a large bowl, combine the sugar and melted vegan butter. Then add the vanilla, flaxseed mixture, and melted chocolate. Mix to combine. Sift in the flour, cocoa powder, baking powder, and salt. The recipe didn't specify the type of cocoa powder, so I used Dutch process due to baking powder being included in the recipe. Natural cocoa powder is more acidic, so it's best paired with baking soda. Mix the batter until just combined, then fold in the remaining chocolate chips. Pour it into an 8-inch pan lined with parchment paper. Bake for 30 to 35 minutes or until a skewer inserted comes out clean. Mine took about 35 minutes to bake. Next up, Rosanna's recipe, which includes oil, maple syrup, and soy milk. Baking powder is also included, so I used Dutch processed cocoa powder even though the recipe didn't specify. In a large bowl, combine the oil, maple syrup, soy milk, and vanilla. In a smaller bowl, combine the flour, cocoa powder, sugar, baking powder, and salt. No sifting was recommended, so mix to fully combine and break up the lumps. But this does take more time than sifting, and you may not get out all the lumps. Add the dry ingredients to the liquid ingredients and stir until combined. Fold in the chocolate chips. The recipe didn't specify how much, so I added 1 cup. Pour in a lined 9 by 13 pan and bake for 30 to 35 minutes or until a skewer inserted comes out clean. Mine took about 44 minutes to bake. And finally, the Crow's recipe. I used a combination of dark and semi-sweet vegan chocolate chips and Dutch processed cocoa powder. In a large bowl, add the flour, sugar, baking powder, cocoa powder, and salt. Mix to fully combine. I like that this is a 1-bowl recipe which minimizes cleanup. Add the oil, plant-based milk, vanilla, and stir until just combined. Fold in the chocolate chips. Pour the batter in a 9 by 13-inch pan sprayed with cooking oil. Bake for 25 to 30 minutes. No recommendation was provided to check for doneness, so mine took about 30 minutes. Now it's time for the taste test, and I'm gonna start with Rainbow Plant Life's brownie recipe. Cut off a huge chunk, but take a look. It's really dense and fudgy, which I like in a brownie. You could even see a few of the chocolate chips inside. As for the look of it, I really like the shiny, crackly crust. It reminds me of a classic brownie. Okay, I'm gonna break off a chunk so you can see how fudgy it is inside. Now let's try a piece. Okay, it's a really rich, fudgy, chocolatey brownie. I really like the flavor of it. This definitely reminds me of a classic brownie. It's dense, it's chocolatey. You can taste the dark chocolate in it, and I think the addition of the espresso does also boost that chocolate flavor, making it so rich. It's not too sweet either, which is pretty good, and the shiny crust is kind of crispy, adding a little bit of texture, which is appealing. Also, the addition of aquafaba, I think, does help give it that fudgy texture, but you don't taste it at all, so that's good. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's definitely one I would make again. Certainly a brownie that I think will easily fool non-vegans. Next up, Tasty's recipe. Here's what it looks like. It's really similar to Rainbow Plant Life's recipe. It has the crackly crust, even though it's not as shiny as the previous one. It's dense and fudgy in texture, which I really like in a brownie. Let's give it a taste. This brownie isn't as sweet as the previous one. It actually has more of a salty taste. It's also not as chewy as I'd expect it to be. It also tends to crumble a little bit more, and it is greasier than the previous brownie recipe. It's also not as chocolatey as I'd expect. I used the same type of chocolate as I did for the previous dark chocolate, just the same. But the chocolatey flavor doesn't come through as much with this recipe. Flax seeds on its own don't really have much of a flavor. You're not really gonna taste it in this recipe, but I think it may have something to do with the texture of the brownie, making it a bit crumblier than chewier. Yeah, I'm not really liking the flavor of this one as much. I wish it had a bit more chocolate flavor or richness to it, and it needs a bit more sweetness, in my opinion. Next up, Rosanna's recipe. Here's what it looks like. It's a really thick, crackly crust and a dense, fudgy texture. Okay, you can see what it looks like. This brownie isn't as chocolatey as I would personally prefer, but it's good just the same. As for the texture, it's more of a cakey brownie. It looks fudgy, but it's more cakey than I expected. It tastes like extra chocolatey cake than a brownie. The flavor is good, the sweetness is good. It doesn't have a rich dark chocolate flavor, but it does have some chocolatey flavor in there. It's not greasy or anything. Crust on top is very crunchy, so I think it's a good recipe for non-vegans, but it's more like a chocolate cake than it is a brownie in my opinion. But it's still pretty good. If you prefer a more cakey brownie, then this is a good recipe to try. And finally, I'm gonna try the recipe by The Crows. Here's what it looks like. Sorry guys, it was a bit crumbly, so I had to put it on a plate. There was no way I could lift this up. A little bit of shininess there, a little bit of sheen. Now I'll give it a taste. This brownie is definitely more like a chocolate cake. I wouldn't call this a brownie per se. I know there's cakey brownies. This is very crumbly and the texture is more like a cake, and it's not as chocolatey or rich as, say, the previous ones. As for sweetness, it's a good balance of sweetness. It's not too sweet. There's not much chocolatey flavor in there, but it's not overly sweet at the same time. It's also not greasy, which is good. What I did like about the recipe though is that everything came together in one single bowl, which made cleaning up a breeze, especially after doing 4 recipes. It's tasty though, for a cake.
This is not bad. I like it. Really chocolatey. Soft like a brownie should be. It's sweet. Not too sweet for me. I think I taste more of the chocolate in this one. I don't know if chocolate chips were used in it or not, but I just taste more chocolate in this. Less sweet, I think, than the other one. This felt a little bit more thick to chew. Yeah, a little more thick to chew. I don't know if I really tasted anything that was too distinct with the flavor. There wasn't really that much distinct about it, but it was just really thick. Not too sweet, no weird aftertaste. Compared to the last two, it was just kind of bland a little bit. Very cakey. I can definitely feel it crumbling in my hand. Yeah, I think there's a somewhat distinct chocolate taste here. Felt some kind of interesting taste after that last one. I'm not sure what it was, but it was different. A little bit of an aftertaste on this one, I think. Not sure I'm feeling it that much. The first two were good. They were really good. Third one was just okay. And the last one, that was probably my least favorite. The first two were really good. I could eat those anytime. I mean, if you forced me to pick one, I guess I would pick the second one.
That's it for our vegan brownie taste test. I hope you enjoyed it. We both picked Rainbow Plant Life as our favorite brownie. Go ahead and give this recipe a try. If you decide you want to try the others, that's totally fine and up to you. Just let me know what you think. If you haven't seen my previous video with the vegan chocolate chip cookie taste test, go check that out right now. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.